All right, welcome to round 5 of Thursday Nighter. So we have a 5-round tournament this month, and this is the decider. So we're gonna actually have a new schedule now. We're gonna go 8 to 10:30. So we're gonna be all these games are almost half done, and we're gonna catch up on all of them. But then we're gonna make sure we get coverage until the games actually end each week. We also actually have new developments. We're going to be having some title players commentate on the channel. FIDE Master will be joining us next week, and hopefully going forward if it works out well. So we'll have dual commentary next week. All right, so I'm going to actually do something different this week where I'm going to try to evaluate the positions myself before turning the engine on. So let's just start with board 1. We got a nice matchup here between Chris and Dane. This is, you can see they're both on camera. They're on the far board. So Dane wearing the U of M hat, and Chris deep in thought on the right with his head in his hands. So this game started e4, e5. Okay, so Dane playing as e5 rep. And Chris going for 2 knights e3. So Dane big Petrov guy. So it makes sense. Chris probably knows that and wants to avoid Dane's main. So he goes for a Vienna. And this is kind of nice, just Zero's way to play it. Vienna Gambit, a lot more risky. More of a blitz opening. So it makes perfect sense to just go for the zeros line. So Chris not really trying to play for a big opening advantage with white, but definitely trying to get Dane out of his Petrov main and just play a chess game. Okay, but Dane probably very familiar with this type of avoidance strategy. Okay, so here he decides to offer the bishop trade and decides to recapture with the queen. I think it usually makes sense for recapture with the queen. Sometimes you can play f takes, but it's not too bad. But it does create some, you get the open rook, but this does become a kind of weak pawn that can be targeted by, say, knight g4 later. So if you got the option to recapture with the queen, preserve the structure, why not? Oh, but he does go f takes, okay. So, yep, definitely Chris is coming to play tonight and wanting to make sure he gets activity for his rook and playing for a win against this king. So, okay, knight c5, just hitting the bishop. No reason to give away this glorious bishop. That's going to definitely assist with your attack. And Dane decides to kind of do the same bishop block, but he's got the knight recapture as an option, which probably is what he'll go for if they trade, and that's what happens in the game. So, yeah, you could get this square control, you get these ideas, but now this diagonal is just so weak. Really don't like that idea. So I definitely like Dane recapturing with the knight here. And now we see, yeah, I mean, this king is going to be a little bit drafty just because these pawns have been pushed and we've got some activity here, so I'm not hating white's position. Okay, bringing the queen into the attack. Knight takes, interesting. So allowing these double pawns, not trying to fix the structure. Wanting to get the knight out of the way so the queen can maybe get in. Pretty far away from this knight. Makes sense to me. Yep, and that was his idea. Okay. Oh, and just going for the queen trade with the exposed king. So I feel like I'd want to keep queens on the board. Just play queen f3. We've got 2 defenders on this pawn. He's got 2 attackers, but maybe it's got some issues, but this king's drafty, so I don't see an awesome reason to trade queens here, so I feel like that was definitely benefiting Dane. And just going for the ending. So we've got an endgame on our hands. Kind of went ambitious at the start, but I would say this position is probably close to zeros. We got equal material, no pawn structure defects, a little bit more center, but it doesn't matter that much when there's only a rook and knight left on the board. If black wants, they can trade the rooks off and just play a knight endgame, which usually when you evaluate a knight endgame, it's just the pawn endgame, so I don't really see any defects in the pawn endgame for either side. So I would say, yeah, this is zeros. So let's turn the engine on. And minus 0.1, so slightly better for black. So bit questionable, I'd say, on going for the queen trade bailout. Yeah, engine like queen f2 here. My move, queen f3, second best. Queen f2, bit hard to understand. Maybe this pawn becomes a weakness later. You know, you'd love to slide into this square or something, so queen f3 makes a little more sense to me. They're pretty equal eval, so I probably still favor my move, queen f3, even engine on here. So, yeah, this one looks pretty placid at this point, and also kind of hilarious. Look at Chris's time usage, 133. So, yeah, I would give queen takes e6 a question mark, especially given the time usage. We're playing classical chess here, so you want to think about these moves. And I'm sure if you sat and tanked on this position for a while, you wouldn't play queen takes e6. All right, let's toggle the engine off though, and let's go to board 2. So also on camera here, we can see them close. Connor on the right, Nathan on the left. Both awesome members of the club. So Nathan is the tournament director. Plays every single week. And Connor is a very strong player in the club, usually playing on board 1, and also supports the stream. He's the one who set the camera up tonight that gave us this camera feed. So very much appreciate Connor's support in the stream. So let's see how their game played out. So Connor started with an English, and Nathan just starting principled. Okay, you know, I'm getting some vibes of E3 Poison here. I know Connor's reading Axel's E3 Poison book, so you know, maybe entering it via a crafty move order, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a pawn structure that is featured in E3 Poison, ideas-based book by Axel Smith, who also published the very popular book Woodpecker, if you like the woodpecker method. Okay, so we got a principled chess game here. Both sides not taking too many risks here, just developing their pieces, and both have accomplished their development successfully. So I'd say very successful opening for both sides. Really not seeing any type of advantage for either player. I mean, yeah, this is a little soft, but you don't really worry about a kingside attack unless you count attackers versus defenders. And yeah, we've got this battery threat, but it's covered. So yeah, again, I'm gonna call this position. I mean, there's 4 minors on. White's got a little more space. I'm gonna say like plus 0.4 for white maybe, but pretty equal. And if I'm black, I'm happy. I got this nice bishop pair zoned down the board, and all my pieces are doing something. You know, maybe I want to fix this knight a bit, kind of staring at squares controlled by my opponent's pawns, but for the most part, yeah, I'm seeing you know, yeah, this knight Can maybe jump in. This knight pressuring here. Can maybe jump in. You know, both these knights kind of working. Maybe this knight's not. So that's why I would say maybe white's got a slight advantage. But also this bishop, not awesome. But hey, it's not bad either. This, you can see this diagonal opening. So yeah, gonna go plus 0.5 for white. We'll see what the eval is here. Ooh, nice. Plus 0.3. So not doing bad so far. All right, and we also got both boards 1 and 2 playing some solid chess. Nothing too crazy. No cardiogram evals. All right, so let's take a look at board 3. So we got Thomas, National Master, against Everyday Eddie, veteran of the club who plays in a ton of tournaments. Eddie becoming a French main nowadays. You know, he really does play like 15 openings. You can see him playing Najdorf. You can see him playing E5, but he's liking his French, so he decides to play it against Thomas. And Thomas actually plays French himself, so Thomas is going to know some good weapons for white, facing them himself on the black side. And this is kind of becoming almost like Rubinstein-like. D takes E4, okay. The burn variation, I'm not super familiar with it. And to me, this is looking already just kind of zeros. White maybe has a bit of a space advantage, but it doesn't really matter when you only have 2 minors left. Okay, especially when you get in C5 and C takes D4, okay. Now I think black is completely equalized. You know, maybe hinting at trapping that rook. Okay, so bishop F5, always interesting when you're going to offer a minor piece exchange. You want to make sure that that trade benefits your side more. Bishop C8 currently undeveloped. Neither side has a bishop pair. If one side had a bishop pair, like say white had 2 bishops right now, you definitely want to trade one of the bishops off because you really neutralize their power by trading one off. So, but both sides have a bishop and a knight, so it's not like necessarily an autopilot decision to trade those bishops off. But also not bad. That bishop's pretty powerful. You know, you want to kind of evaluate the activity of the piece when you decide if, like, would I like to trade that piece off? And I mean, knight f6 is gone. You can imagine some attacking options happening. This bishop is looking pretty good. It's blunting the rook, but mainly it's attacking the king. So I can definitely see trading it off as not being a bad option at all. And board 3, I think we also have a pretty placid game. You know, we got a bit more imbalance. I got a 4-on-3 versus a 2-on-3. But this knight not doing much of anything. But hey, everything is perfectly coordinated. You know, maybe you want to get some back rank space for these pieces, but not seeing any problems with either side's position. You know, black definitely has a little bit more central control. Controlling this knight, you know, and what's this knight really doing? It's probably going to drop back. You don't really want to, you know, maybe it'll come like this. I can see that happening. Can't really see this happening. I mean, this doesn't seem like a well-placed square for the knight. But this does, and maybe black will get ambitious. But these are very, you know, actually these rooks are both fully developed on open files, and you know this rook is not playing yet. But at the same time, this is the only open file that's being competed for, and this knight's a bit offsides. But But if I'm evaluating this position, and black's got a little bit of central control, so both sides have a little bit of pluses. White's got a little bit of development, and black has a little bit of central control. I'm going to favor the development. Call this plus 0.4. We'll see. Yep, we got plus 0.1, so a little more equal than I thought. But totally plastic games on boards 1 through 3 tonight. So everyone bring in their good Russian schoolboy classical chess to the club tonight on boards 1 through 3. All right, let's toggle the engine off. And go to board 4. So we have Ryan Chiroma against Albert Yang. So Albert have an excellent tournament this month. 2 giant upsets against players 2,000 plus, and playing against Ryan. Thanks for joining the chat, Nolan. Good to see you joining. I'm just previewing all the games slowly right now, trying to evaluate them myself. We're going to actually start late each night, 8 p.m., and kind of catch up on the games halfway through and then make sure we finish them through the end. So here we got board 4, Ryan against Albert, and we got e4, e5, okay. It's an Italian game. Not seeing anything too crazy for either side, and I'm not a specialist on this opening, so... Oh, but here we got a little bit of pawn doubling. Okay, so a bit surprised he didn't play queen takes f6. But there must be a clear defect with that. Probably this pawn a little bit loose. Yep, getting your pieces forked, so makes sense. So d5 a bit interesting here. Not sure if he saw the bishop takes f6 response, because it looks pretty good to ruin this king safety. So already favoring white a little bit. Okay, Ryan just trying to get the file open maybe. To me, I'd be a little more concerned with finishing my development. But let's see how this plays out. Okay, yeah, g4, g5, getting knight f6 in. I love it. So this knight is pretty crazy good. Yeah, you just want to get this knight out the way so you can get queen h5 in. And how is he defending that? It's a big question mark. But he's probably going to try to trade this knight off pretty quickly. So this looks like a brutal attack for white. Let's calculate slightly here to make sure his attack's going to continue, because if it is, I'm going to say white's got a huge advantage here. But you know, if you can trade this knight off, maybe this attack was a bit naive, just throwing the pawn forward before you finish your development. You usually want to finish your development first to make an attack work. So let's at least calculate knight g8. You know, I'm going to move my knight out of the way to attack the king, so maybe knight h4, which is knight takes f6, g takes, queen takes, and that's not really working out at all. So this might not be fast enough. Because you can't really imagine sacking your knight on h7. Because even if you somehow get your knight moved and queen h5 check in, they can always just block knight h6. And because you already gave a piece away, so they can give a piece back. So Interesting game. I'm going to call this actually. I mean, I'm not seeing the attack for white continuing perfectly, so, but actually it looks pretty dangerous. I'm going to call this, though, like -1. Just going to say there's a defense here. And it is -0.3. So it looks like best way white can continue their attack is queen e2 or king f1. Totally not obvious. I was also thinking it was black's move for some reason, like they could get knight g8 in instantly, but looks like white has no awesome way to develop their attack anyways, even though they don't have that time. And let's look back here. Okay, engine actually likes g4. So I was a little off base with let's just finish development. I mean, engine likes g4. So also likes castle, but let's just play against this broken king. You know, you don't necessarily need to break your own king side when they've already broken their king aside. You can maybe just maneuver an attack and play against this weakness and the king weakness a little more indirectly without any pawn pushes. Just go for piece play. So also don't hate that idea. That's probably how I would play in my game, just castle. Not totally obsessed with the dynamics if I've already got some static advantages. Alright, let's toggle the engine off though and go to board 5. So we got club veterans Arvind against UV, and both have played each other many times. Both 2,000 plus strong players. Both know their openings pretty well. It looks like we got a Slav. I don't play d4, and I don't play the Slav, so I don't know much about what's going on in the opening here, but it looks like they're following master theory. Yep, top master move. All top master moves. Okay, queen f3. Bit of a novelty here, but actually the highest win rate for white, so maybe this is some home cooked prep from Arvind. 6 master games here with 67% win rate for white, average rating 2572. So this actually looks kind of like a killer line for white. Kind of rare, but good if this is actual prep. And we do see that, you know, he hasn't used much time here yet, but he did think about 4 minutes on queen f3. So this actually could be indicator that Arvind's on his own now. And UV facing a rare move, definitely on his own now, so down to 122. Thinking about bishop d6. UV was probably well prepared for f3 here. Or perhaps, I guess queen f3 is actually crazy, the most common move in the Lichess database, so this is kind of blitz move, but also master quality. So we still are in master territory of Slav. Okay. And queenside castle here, gonna be a bit interesting for sure. Probably this king is probably gonna get attacked at some point. We already see the attack coming. And we got a full opposite side castle game here, so UV Dragon player likes his opposite side castling in the Slav as well. You know, just going queen side to king side instead of going king side to queen side like he likes in the Dragon. Okay, nice. This is just a sweet knight. All posted. You can't imagine f3 coming anytime and it would weaken the king, especially with this bishop bearing down. So what's this? what are you going to do with this knight? Definitely don't want to take this bishop. This knight's a monster. This bishop's doing nothing. Okay, black knows that. Using his monster knight, and okay, getting ready, I guess, for doubling here. I feel like just crash through would make more sense to me, but I'm not calculating the game, so he spent a lot of time on that, by the way. So he spent 3 minutes on rook h6, but we're already pretty far into the game, so that's part of the late start here, starting at 8, but so we're starting halfway through the games. And okay, we got a queen trade. What's the material here? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 versus 1 2 3 4 5 6. So, but this pawn might be a little bit loose, but he's probably going to protect it. Yep. So, looking like a solid edge for Arvind here. I mean, you got opposite color bishops with rooks. But it's a clean pawn. And this is kind of scary too. You can imagine maybe some sack here in the future, but probably not with this bishop anchoring. I would say in a practical game, this could be drawish with the opposite color bishops, but a computer, I think, is just going to totally crush this game. So I'm going to say this is plus 1.5. Let's see what the eval is. Plus 3.5. So even way more crushing than I thought. So Arvind, 1 hour 13 on the clock against 24 minutes from UV in a totally crushing position. Definitely showcasing a nice game versus the Slav, in that he's well prepared with his sweet queen f3 line that both Masters and the Blitz pool love, with great win rates. All right, we got 7 boards tonight, so let's take a look at Robert against Torfi. And so Robert, okay, we got an Alekhine, and I know Robert plays a little Alekhine himself, but just going for a very conventional setup here. Looks like both sides developing their pieces. So actually both these players kind of known for playing crazy chess, kind of throwing their pawns down the board, but looks like both are in the mood for a kind of more mild positional night. So happy to see that. Okay, Robert deciding to get a little bit of dynamics in, jumping in with knight d5, allowing these double pawns, but a bit controversial because, yeah, these are weak, but at the same time they control a lot of squares, especially with all these minors on the board. So just an interesting position, but let's see how he wants to redevelop. Looks like he's coming out this way. Okay, and getting h5, maybe getting h6 in now. Surprising he's allowing h6, and he doesn't play it. So I'm surprised h6 isn't coming. I mean, looks like, he really isn't wanting to have that bishop stare into a pawn after g6, but it seems pretty nice. Okay, c6 kind of controversial because you're getting a little more central space, but now, these pawns aren't weak anymore. I mean, this is an isolated pawn, but you got an isolated pawn too, and everything's, totally fine with white's position now. So you're it's kind of a bit of a Y playing c6 to me. Okay, this pawn was hanging. So we got big king safety issue here for white, but he's just going to calculate and This queen can't attack alone. This knight's not coming in anytime soon. What other attacking pieces do you have? I don't really mind it. Bishop is controlling. Queen check square, controlling. You can't even really check this king. Yeah, you can come in here, maybe pick this pawn up, but bishop's controlling. But what's the second attacker? It's probably not going to happen. So white's already looking pretty good in this game. And white does have a huge rating advantage. Not having the best tournament this month, but white is pretty big rating favorite in this game. And both extremely fast players too. I mean, Robert more so than Torfy, it looks like, but both playing fast. We're already getting into a full game of chess here when we're only halfway through the night. And let's see what's happened here with the dust settled. So this bishop looking pretty terrible. I mean, it's just killed by this pawn. Killed by his own pawn, killed by white's pawn. We got 4 pawns against 4 pawns and same color bishops. But white's positionally dominating this bishop. It's basically playing piece up. Just got to keep this piece anchoring this h6 pawn. And got to calculate. And Robert, excellent at endgames here. I'm going to say this is very high chance white wins this game. I'm going to say the eval here, also threatening check. Pick up this pawn, protect this pawn. So, which is an option he's probably definitely thinking about right now. He's also got to worry about losing his own bishop to check. So, can't be too lackadaisical. Maybe an anchor that first. But yeah, definitely engine calculating perfectly here with this totally dead piece. I'm going to say this is +3. You're up a full piece. And it's zeros. So, got this one totally wrong. Looks like just too few pawns on the board. It doesn't really matter that this piece is dead. Black's got enough time to get counterplay against white's weak pawns as well, like d4 and a2, but especially d4. And then once you get rid of this, maybe you'll be able to push this pawn later and liberate the bishop. Yeah, engine just says zeros throughout here. So, interesting. Optically, it looks like white is positionally dominating, but it is actually zeros. So, all right, let's toggle the engine off and let's get to the last board. So, last board is open section. We have Thaddeus against Daniel. Okay, Scandi. Wonder if Daniel is a John Bartholomew fan. And we got a kind of a Catalan setup against the Scandi. Interesting. Not too familiar with this. Okay, b4, lashing out. Interesting. This must be poison. Yep. Because this is coming. This is vulnerable. I'm going to get a really active rook on the 7th. Makes sense. So, interesting. Okay. Also, b4, by the way, in this position is the #1 master move. So, these guys in the open section around 1800 still know their theory extremely well. Openings are becoming a thing that most classical chess players know and want to make sure they know in their realm. And there's a decent chance these pairings, that they saw their pairings ahead of time and did some prep for this game. So, okay. But at this point, we finally do master theory. So master's playing knight b7 here in the final master game between two 2350s. So bishop d6 makes perfect sense though. Just want to get this king castled. Want to get this bishop developed. Okay, trying to win the bishop pair. Preventing it. And now, yeah, I mean, you can insist on winning the bishop pair, but now you're going to break your structure. And actually, you really can't because that would hang. So he's maybe preparing g4 now. But still, you don't love playing g4. Okay, this is weird. I guess not. So he plays knight back and then bishop forward. So he wants to trade the dark square bishop. I don't see a huge reason to. But probably a pretty equal decision. And yeah, this pawn's pretty much dominating this knight right now. So, you know, even relocating here, he's staring at squares controlled by black, and he wants to jump in here. And maybe jump in here. So I definitely don't hate it. And so what do we got here when the dust settles? I would say equal material, equal king safety. Neither side has a bishop pair type of advantage. Black maybe has a bit more center, you know. That's a questionable decision because you're just allowing bishop versus knight for no great reason. I mean, maybe he wants to play against this pawn, but get a big center himself, but I would kind of just jump on that as white. So, you know, I would say before this position, pretty equal, maybe favoring black, minus 0.2. After this, I'm going to say plus 0.6. So let's look at both. Engine on, okay. So after A3, yep, minus 0.4, minus 0.5. Probably just because everything's equal, but black has a little bit of extra central space. And let's see what happens after bishop d5. Okay. Engine doesn't hit as much as I hated it. But yeah, knight takes d5 is plus 0.1. So kind of going from minus 0.5 to plus 0.1. And looks like after the big center is resolved, you can still just shove c4. This is interesting because if you try to take here, I'm going to take here. We have actually got the 2-on-1. So that's an interesting dynamic to note. You know, this bishop is pretty latently powerful. And definitely not, you know, if you could trade this off, that would be a great trade, right? But this is not what you want to do. You're just leaving this monster bishop to face down against this knight, and the monster bishop is going to win. But, okay. Questionable positional decision by Thaddeus to play knight e4. Just snap that thing, dude. But he's scared about c takes d4, scared about this backwards pawn, scared about the big center, and also not seeing, you know, he's not an engine, and so not seeing that c4 is tactically defended by bishop takes b7. So we got a normal classical chess game on our hands here. Black back to a bit of advantage. Minus 0.3, but totally equal game here with both sides having good development and good pieces and good chances. So interesting. We have a game result on board one. So did just get through all the boards. We got 7 boards covered tonight. And let's take a look at what happened here on board one with Chris kind of blitz moving, especially trading these queens. So we'll go bar on at this point. Okay, so Dane pushing that knight back a bit. Still nothing going on here. And it says 1-0. And they're not playing. But from what I can tell, this position is equal. And also, Chris didn't spend any time at all for the game, and Dane thought most of the game. So I'm not really sure what happened in this game. But it's not really making sense that Chris would resign in this position. So yeah, I'm sure there's more to the story here. I'm sure I will hear from either Chris or Dane. I'm friends with both these guys, so definitely hoping the best for Chris here, that he didn't have some sort of crisis or something going on playing so fast, and somehow resigning in a drawn position. So all right though, but we can see Connor against Nathan. This is the camera board, and we got a total zeros position, but we got 4 minors on, and both sides pieces looking great. Both sides have bishop pairs that are kind of a little bit tied down, but you can imagine this one totally opening up in a second. This knight's just nice and trenched. This is where you want your knight, anchored on a central square. And rooks both on awesome open files, so it makes perfect sense that this is total zeros. And both sides are going to be struggling here to try to find any way to improve on the position, but I definitely don't see this one becoming a placid draw. A very mistake-prone game with a lot of interesting dynamics for both sides. So let's leave it on this one for the moment, and I'm going to take a short break. All right, so this one getting to a critical moment. Time-wise, at least 45 minutes against 27. So both players are going to be trying their best here, but not a ton of ideas to find unless one player kind of goes crazy. So let's see what's going on here. Again, Eddie against Thomas in the French. So Eddie totally equalized out of the opening. And we've got just a total zeros position here. This knight a bit awkward, like, where's it going to go if it gets kicked? But nothing out of this world. Find its way back in the game somehow. And Black's got a little central space, but space matters a lot less when you have one miner left. So yeah, total zeros on board 3. Doesn't mean it's going to end in zeros, but we'll see how this plays out. Eddie, the time trouble addict, he'll definitely be getting down to 1 minute in this game, no matter how it plays out. Okay, and then we have Ryan against Alberts with the fractured king side. But G5 looks a little rushed here because, yeah, F5 closing things up. But, yeah, knight F6 jumping in. And now, wow, knight H4 blunder. Just looks like knight G8 totally consolidating. And maybe White's king is going to come under fire afterwards because minus 3.4 if he finds his knight G8. So he does kind of show, okay, but he plays E3. So counter blunder. 7-point swing. Instead of playing minus 3.4 knight G8, just going for that king himself makes a lot of sense logically, but Engine doesn't like it because it's seeing queen H5 and how do you prevent a mate. This does look cold-blooded, though, because, yeah, look at this. I mean, double-checking the king. And apparently, crazy. King D2. Wow. Just doesn't matter. Let's just keep walking away. And now, you're going to get mated. Or you're going to lose your queen. So can definitely see why Albert decided to go for E3 because you can't really imagine White playing the cold-blooded queen H5. But Ryan's got 11 minutes. Let's see if he can find it because actually every other line is looking pretty solid for Black. Really crushing this lack of development from White. So I think, yeah, that is something to note in a position like this. Knight G8 actually does make a lot of sense because you got to deal with this knight, and if you do, White has really neglected their king safety. But this also makes a ton of sense considering like every line except for queen H5 and the king walk is winning for Black. Crazy. So Albert, some crazy tactics. I would definitely not be surprised to see Ryan not play queen H5 here. So this is a critical moment. Ryan finds queen H5. He's going to win. If he doesn't, very good chance Albert is going to win. And Albert, let's take a look at his wins. Already got a win over Arvind and Robert, both 2,000 plus players. So he is going to, especially if he pulls out this win against Ryan, he's going to gain a ton of rating this month. All Alright, speaking of Arvind, we have Arvind against UV. Arvind totally crushing. Just piling up pressure on C6. Okay. Knight takes D2. Okay, I don't love it. All pawns fixed on dark. This bishop wasn't awesome. And this knight was kind of the prize of your position. So something's gone wrong if you're playing a move like that. And at this point it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 against 6. So Arvind up clean pawn. And yeah, we already saw a bit of this. So it looks like he just picked up another pawn. And yeah, well on his way to converting this with this monster A-pawn, bishop controlling the queening square. Just going to play something like A7, move the rook away with check and play A8, win this rook. Or just move the rook away, not with check. Probably even better. This dark square bishop can't even get at this king. If they had a light square bishop, be a bit scarier, but you can even imagine him playing something like this and just hiding the king on G2. But you wouldn't want to do that because you don't want him to get doubled rooks on the first. Threaten something like check the king up to F3 and G4 checkmate. The bishop controlling. But yep, this is just totally over. Arvind's coasting to a victory here. Oh, huge material with a killer passer. Okay, so we have Robert against Torfi, and Robert having the dominant looking ending that was, I thought was winning for white, but was zeros. And now all of a sudden just turned into +5. So, so yeah, here's where we randomly looked at it, where it was pretty close to zeros, and rook d7 actually turned it to +3. So it turns out, yeah, this is totally dead bishop. And my suspicion of this being a really suspicious position for black was correct. They had some nice computer moves to equalize at certain moments, but white's totally dominating here, like I suspected, because yeah, now they're +3, kind of just out of nowhere. And okay, actually back to zeros though. Okay, so this is interesting. Bishop d2, big mistake. Just want to reinforce this pawn, apparently, and keep control here. A3, A5, and now just take it, or otherwise just kind of running out of moves. Just gonna get these pawns all the way up. And then just bring the king in and ask this bishop what it's doing. Okay though, but actually going for bishop takes G5 kind of gives this rook a lot of counterplay. And now we're back to total zeros. But still definitely favoring white because of this bishop issue. But now he's kind of fixed it. So yeah, definitely questionable to allow F4. You know, you really needed to focus on keeping this bishop oppressed the rest of the game. So to allow black to get rook b4 and f4 in, and eventually pick this pawn up, and bishop g7 is kind of letting things fall apart on your total grip on the position. So good job on black on finding a path to liberate his pieces, because now this bishop finally has a way to get in the game. And yeah, white's got an awesome rook here, but not the cash in you were probably looking for, because also this, you're almost out of pawns. And now we've got, okay, he's up a clean pawn and probably thinking this is total zeros, but we do have a huge rating gap here, and Robert kind of has a passer on the path to victory here. I would definitely not be shocked to see white win this, but it is zeros. So very well played game by Torphy. Okay, Thaddeus against Daniel. Again, getting through our 7th board here. Made a nice cycle through all the boards again. Okay. Pretty equal. Pretty conservative. Also how I play chess though, so nothing to criticize here, but definitely wouldn't be surprised to see either side win this game, but nothing going on in this position. Yeah, again, this makes no sense, but they are done playing. They're off camera. So let's jump back to our camera board. Nathan in deep thought here in the white polo, tournament director, national master, playing with the black pieces against Connor in the red hoodie, currently pondering. So total zeros position here, but kind of dynamically nice for both sides. Both sides have nice bishop pairs bearing down on each other's kings. Black's got a little bit more central space. Both sides have good pieces, good rooks. White's got this nice attacking piece. Can maybe imagine White's attack working a little bit, because we got 1, 2, 3 attackers, and we got 1, 2 defenders. So if you can somehow neutralize this knight in a favorable way for white, you can imagine a critical mass of pieces coming towards this king a little bit easier than you can imagine the opposite. Maybe you can imagine black bearing down this way. Okay, so anchoring this knight in a very solid way. Maybe baiting white to play f3, but every time you push a pawn, you lose control of squares, and this is looking extremely scary now. So not actually totally loving f5, mainly because of this bishop b2 piece. Now you just gotta, this queen's babysitting queen g7 mate the rest of the game. This bishop is doing the best it possibly can the rest of the game. Unless absolutely necessary, I don't think it was worth it to weaken that king a little bit further. So maybe tide turning a little bit in Connor's favor here. We'll see. Definitely nothing crazy. Engine jumping from zeros to plus 0.5, and liking the plan of rook c2 and maybe hinting at doubling. It's funny, Engine likes to move knight c4 here, because this is mating. Absolutely crazy. So black definitely does have some issues here. And you can see, yeah, if he hadn't pushed f5, stuff like knight c5, knight c4 is probably not working at all because king can step to h8. So could get a little spicy here. Counter definitely a good calculator. So is Nathan. But Nathan showing, you know, he's not just gonna shuffle the pieces here. He's ready to try to make something happen, even if it's gonna take some risk. All right, we got another move on the board. Knight f3. So engine also likes knight f3. Didn't just like rook c2, and yeah, counter not opting to go for the kind of flashy knight c4 that doesn't actually make any obvious threats. So interesting game here. Eddie against Thomas. No big developments. Thomas needs to fix his knights, but looks like he's got plenty of chance to. And yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see this one ending up in a draw. Okay, Ryan against Albert. Wow, so let's see how this played out. Ryan did find queen h5. Killer. Great move by Ryan. We're not doing too many games of the week lately, but you know, this definitely could be a candidate for the game of the week. Finding queen h5. King walks. Okay, and he just sacks the queen. Crazy. I can't really see sacking the queen. I mean, I guess he's calculating and seeing there's nothing better, but gotta at least try rook d8 or bishop e3 or something. Queen takes f6 is just pseudo resignation. And yeah, looks like Ryan's gonna clean this up. Nothing much left to play for Albert, so crazy. Awesome move by Ryan. Only move in this position, queen h5. You got to see that after e takes f2, double check to the king can just run to the queen side. And Ryan found it, so not letting Albert steal too many points this month. Already got a lot of points. I'm sure he's going to gain 50 plus points easily. Even going 2 and 3 because his 2 wins were over expert and 2137. So all right, any shockers here? Nope. Arvin just well on his way to clean up here. So it looks like he did lose his deep passer. So how did that happen? Okay, he decided to grab on f7, allowing this guy to trade. A bit, I want to keep my a6 pawn if I'm Arvin, but he's the one calculating out the board, and this is so winning that, yeah, look, okay, he's attacking the rook and threatening mate. So, yep, tries to stop the mate. He's threatened mate again. And when he slides there, he's going to maybe attack the bishop. maybe. So I don't know. Full conversion phase, all the top moves, +6, +7, +33. White has, or I mean, black has no hopes in this position at all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 2 clean pawns, and probably in the tactical complications here are going to either mate black or win another full rook. So very well played game by Arvin. Looks like we got just nice Slav game. And yep, Thomas did end up pulling out this ending, so it was even. I mean, sorry, Robert, not Thomas. And so what happened here? So still zeros here. Black finally solved their bishop, so solved the big issue of their position, and okay. Black actually playing this perfectly so far. Still zeros. Oh, and this is the huge blunder. Okay, so offering the bishop trade, because now white has these gap tooth pawns. This can't be taken. These pawns defend themselves against the king. So this is just pawn and game knowledge that Robert had and found nice only line to win here. Because, yep, now if this steps back, these pawns defend themselves forever, so this king can just deal with these pawns and deal with this pawn, and this pawn deals with this pawn. So say we come up here, let's just say he comes back, now we can advance. If he comes this way, we can just keep advancing. You can never take. Just got to be careful not to advance too quickly. But yeah, if they're one pawn apart, they totally support themselves. So you can actually be very confident trading into an endgame like this, knowing that it's totally winning for white. If you have the pawns, they're almost just as good as side-by-side pawns, which you would know very clearly are kind of invulnerable. So, bit brutal. Torfi playing excellent game. Zeros against 2137 Roberts. But Robert showing his endgame knowledge, busting out f4. Looks like he's on his way to victory here. And definitely recovering this month. So nice to see just a nice positional game by Robert where he ends up outclassing and winning in an endgame. And definitely hoping to see him recover next month and be playing again, hopefully. All right, so let's take a look at Thaddeus against Daniel in the open section. Looks like we still got total zeros. Okay, missed the chance to grab that bishop. Decides to trade knights. Decided to trade bishops. We're just swapping all the pieces. Now we just got heavies left, but totally solid pawn structure for both sides. No defects. Definitely not over yet. You got a lot of heavy pieces left. Tactics still might come up, but neither side has any positional merit to claim an advantage. Okay, looks like UV against Arvin did resolve. Looks like UV decided to resign here after chasing the king one more move. He attacked the bishop. If he comes back, I guess his idea is, yeah, just snap the bishop and then snap the rook and be up a full piece. So if it was me, I'd resolve it to this point and then resign down the full piece. You never know. But UV deciding to call it a day. And very well played game by Arvin. So Arvin going to finish with looks like he had a half-point bye, so 2 wins, 2 losses. And solid month for Arvin's club regular. All right, so we got Connor against Nathan. Cameron Ward both sitting there at the board. Nathan in the polo, Connor in the red hoodie. Also both supporters of the channel, so Nathan helps get the broadcast set up, and Connor it's his cell phone supporting the live camera feed right now. And Connor also comes on the channel and commentates. So very much appreciate both of them. Yeah, with that, let's actually talk about our sponsor for a moment here. So we also have a sponsor. We have chessgoals.com. Simple chess courses for non-grandmasters. Learn complete repertoires in under 100 lines. And so this is a opening course company owned by National Master Matt Jensen. He commentates on the channel now and then, also known as Smarter Chess. Does the stats for Speed Chess Championships on chess.com. And he has a ton of courses. I own one myself, the Catalan course, and you get access to PGNs, videos, and a private Discord where Matt actually answers questions himself very actively. So it seems like a pretty great product to me. If you want to get club level repertoires kind of prepared by a national master, so you know they're going to work at club level, and you're going to actually see these lines appear on the board. Check these courses out, and if you decide to purchase any, use coupon code CASTLE to save 30% on your purchase. And look forward to seeing Matt himself on the channel if you want to get an idea of the player who is preparing those courses. So, all right, but let's get back to the main video feed. So yeah, this one is okay. Now he's going for the rook c2 plan. White's still definitely starting to get a bit of a pull here, but very double-edged, especially after black decided to go for f5 and open up this monster bishop with the queen already on h6. So let me leave it here for a moment, and I will be right back. All right, no big developments on board 2. Nothing on board 3. Okay, Ryan closed us out against Albert. Let's see the final moves. You let him checkmate on the board. Looks like Albert's a great sport. You already saw UV resigned here. Nice game by Arvind. Yep, Robert on the way to advancing his gap tooths. Torfy not recognizing that he's totally lost here, but no chance. Looking for any hope. And okay, battle on the D file here. Thaddeus against Daniel, heating up a tiny bit, even though total zeros. A lot of tension here. But, yep, next makes sense. Just make some space. Computer likes h5 and h6. Also likes trading rooks. So just imagine, let's trade all these guys. Even just give white the D file. This is no issue at all. Let me go for this pawn. They can play many moves. They can just push it. Not what I would really like, because then this gets a little loose. I like this move, queen f6, just target f2. Let's come in here. You know, let's make threats. This is how I would play, for sure, if I saw these lines. I always like to make my own threats rather than react to my opponent's threats, if possible. Especially when his threat's not much of a threat. It is, I mean, of course it's a big threat, but queen takes b7 makes this queen totally inactive. It doesn't access the rest of the board at all, so you know you might totally clean up a bunch of their pawns in response or something, if he actually does that. So, yep. Interesting game here. Both sides getting down to a little time pressure. The pure chess result should be a draw here, but let's see what actually happens. And we're back to the camera board. So Nathan, deep in thought against Connor. Nathan with the black pieces. And both sides having excellent pieces. Excellent bishop pair. White enjoying a bit more king safety, so I definitely prefer white. But that knight on e4 is no slouch. And rook f7, good defender of the king. You can see that just sitting there, especially with that monster bishop on b2. But yeah, also that monster bishop on b2. I mean, compare white's dark square bishop to black's dark square bishop. I'd rather have white's 10 times out of 10, just a total open diagonal here, versus, yeah, this is nice, but this is normal, and this is abnormal. But it's total zeros. Black still has great control over g7, and that's not going to change anytime soon. But yeah, we saw earlier with crazy variation with knight c4 and bishop coming in that it's not always just about the one square. It's also, you know, now this king is really a lot more constricted, so this diagonal becomes a lot more weak. this knight totally ideal. So yeah, both sides just gotta calculate and try to find the best moves they can. It's hard to even suggest a move for black here. Engine likes f4. Otherwise, you're kind of just making nothing burger moves with bishop d6 or rook c6. So let's look at f4. Taking advantage of this queen's vision. So, at this point, I actually like this. I mean, the queen was awesome on h6, but black's totally over defended g7 now, and it's not going to do much. You're not going to really, and this knight's not going to move to allow you to sack on g6, and even if it does, it's questionable if that is even a knockout when it probably is with the bishop zoning in, but yeah, knight's not going to move. It's also totally anchored this way. So, you kind of did your purpose there. You made them over defend that square. Let me try to get some activity in another way. I definitely don't mind that. Definitely don't want to fracture your structure this way. If you can avoid it. No reason to give knight g3 potential options. Wow. It says agreed draw. I'm shocked if that was the result, because this is totally winning for white. But game results showing draw. We'll see if that was a DGT error or not. Okay, it looks like Thaddeus against Daniel decided to agree to a draw here, which it's zeros. Still might as well play a few more moves, but definitely not an abnormal result. Yeah, not understanding this one though. This is a totally winning position for white, but showing draw. And also, he shoved f4 here. He shows he knows the concept. I mean, there's no way Robert is not capable of converting this. So yeah, we're on our way to actually a short night tonight. We're actually going to go from 8 to 10:30 if there's still games going. And next week we'll actually have a FIDE Master commenting on stream with me from 8 to 10. So we can look forward to that. Looks like Eddie's trying to, play it out against Thomas with 2 minutes left. I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie had declined a draw at some point here or something like that. But also Tom is probably trying to press his time advantage here a bit. I mean, this looks awesome for Thomas when you have a huge time advantage and knights and queens are tricky. Just play a bunch of moves and hope black blunders, but also don't start trying to pressure his clock or anything. Just keep calculating and playing normally until you maybe get in time pressure, and then you maybe can go for a draw. But you don't want to start playing fast yourself just because your opponent's in time pressure. I've made that mistake myself against Eddie. Yeah, queen c4 makes sense next. So this will just be a nice little endgame battle playing against Eddie's clock, but it's objectively totally equal. But I think, if you're really trying to work on your rating, you got to play this out as white every time, having this type of time advantage. Just try to pose some practical problems for black and hope they blunder in their time pressure. Okay, so this is taking some developments. Looks like white making a bit of progress on the engine eval. So, okay, knight f3, rook f8. Yep, we already saw this. This was totally equal. And rook e8. So last move, engine not liking Nathan's move, rook e8. Yeah, I wanted f4. But hard. And this definitely doesn't seem to mess the position too much. I mean, I guess these rooks are really bearing down on this square, so you're a bit worried about this pawn attacking the rook. Okay, counterattack. This is probably what he's seeing, but just anchor. And now this pawn's loose, gotta come back, defend. Ooh, and engine likes exchange sack. Pointing out you can't take a second time here because of just mate from the bishop. Okay, I was thinking here, I'm like, why does that work? Because the rook's covers, but the bishop. And apparently this is just not totally lethal, but yeah, right. Okay, so this is apparently good for white. Come on, who's gonna stack in exchange like that? For fairly dubious compensation. Maybe actually one of the viewers can explain this to me. Throw it in the comments on why rook takes c5 makes sense positionally, but it looks like the engine follow-up lines are a bit too vague for me to ever justify that, even if I saw the lines that the engine is suggesting. So we'll see how this goes. Engine's like an h4 rolling now. Okay, actually, main point of h4 is not actually to throw in h5. That's an interesting note. It's just to have a nice anchor for knight g5. And allowing us to open this h file, maybe in the future, imagine a rook coming to the h file. So the kind of fishing pole idea. So that's something good to know. When you're thinking about attacking plans, you're playing blitz, you just play h4, h5. But you're playing classical chess, you want to think about your different attacking plans. I can fishing pole them because this opens the h file, or I can potentially try to open the h file this way, but you might push past. You might attack my queen that gets trapped. Alright, we got Thomas pressuring Eddie's clock a bit in a totally drawn knight endgame, knight and queen endgame. The one thing is, it's not hard for black to make some quick moves, hopefully, and build up a bunch of time if white is not really exerting pressure. So it looks like maybe his idea is like, get the queen in or something, and his idea is, okay, let me just build a bathtub. This is a nice pawn structure. Kick that knight out. Say, what are you doing? He definitely still needs to fix this knight, but this doesn't hurt the structure at all. It's not, you don't even want to play this because what's that going to do? Open your king up a little bit. I'll still have a solid structure behind it. So yeah, it looks like two, every week club players battle into a nice draw, but both kind of, fighting for it, and not just agreeing to it too easily. But we'll come back to this if there's any major developments, but let's just leave it on the last other active game between Connor and Nathan, with Connor starting to pile up a bit of pressure. Okay, rook e8. Okay, makes a big decision. Bishop takes c4. Okay, this knight was a monster. And this bishop now is staring at a giant pawn chain. Yeah, you can imagine it really coming to lethal effect on this diagonal, but not a bad decision at all to snap that if you're seeing some good tactical variations. Say it's positionally justified. And okay, f takes, wants some activity for his own rook and maybe some play against this pawn in the future, as well as kind of maintaining his pawn mass, not getting this c pawn too isolated. So it makes perfect sense. Knight g5 coming in with tempo. Okay, rook f5. Knight e6. Okay, so Engine doesn't like knight e6, but let's see what his idea was. So okay, impossible. That's the main initial idea, I guess, and he can come back this way. But if you come back this way, you can snap, snap, snap. And is there a threat here? Let's just imagine he does nothing. Okay, then you can play knight g7 and fork these. So that's his main idea. Okay. And let's look at the main. It looks like most of the variations are going very well for white. Here's a very reasonable variation, bishop e5, and now we can trade the bishops. Play knight f4, maybe pile up here, continue to attack here. Now he has a difficult time defending this, so that actually is a bit interesting decision earlier about pulling that defender off. But yeah, we actually see Nathan play in the game. The reason why knight e6 is not liked by the engine, d4. Now this pawn mass is really getting rolling. So this actually is totally favored for black now. Very interesting because yeah, you're shutting down this perfect bishop. So I guess you really had to make sure you got to calculate d4 every move when you have such a monster bishop, it looks like. And yeah, you wouldn't think actually exerting more pressure on d4 would allow d4, but apparently it does. So let's look at the move the engine liked, h4, and imagine the d4 response. Well, now we're just taking the pawn here, apparently. Okay, so now let's see what happened in the game. Knight e6, d4, and if we take the pawn, we're losing the knight, and now the bishop no longer. So this knight is becoming a tactical liability that doesn't allow you to play rook takes c5. Not easy. Wow, Nathan really showing his strength and why he's national master, finding the best move here. And Connor, yeah, if you look at him on screen, definitely not looking happy. Calculating variations and not seeing anything super positive for him. But at the same time, let's see what he finds here. Actually, his position's on the verge of collapse because engine best move here is g4. It looks like he just made a move, and g4 is hard to find. And the next best moves are crushing for black. Connor did find g4, so Connor's showing that he is up to the task of not allowing his position to totally collapse, because any other move besides g4 in this position would have been lethal for black. Looks like rook takes c5. I mean, yeah, he's just losing the knight. Knight takes c5, which maybe is something you want to think about. He's coming in with this protected passer and tempo on the rook. And g4, like played in the game, so brilliant move found by Connor. Still a nice position for black, by the way, but only move for white to justify things. And if you try d3 here now, this is not quite working in the same way. I mean, white is pretty happy here because no longer have this monster d3 pawn to deal with. We just got to trade rooks. Okay, great. And this is actually totally winning for white. So g4, wow. So both these players showing how strong they are and why they're playing on one of the top boards in the final round here, because Nathan finding best move in the position, d4, putting Connor's position on the verge of collapse, and Connor just busting out g4, best move in the position as well. And now we'll see if Nathan is up to the task of finding another good move. And this is how it goes between two strong players, where they're just going to find the best move, find the best move, find the best move until someone doesn't. But if you're hoping to beat either Connor or Nathan with one move blunder, it's probably not too likely, because they're going to put up a ton of resistance and continue to find the best moves. So what is the move that Nathan needs to find here if he is to find the best move? Rook d5. And now we can finally take this thing, and when we try this, we have rook c4, and this is apparently a lot better now for not totally clear reasons, but this position is totally +1. So very difficult position. This one's gonna be crazy. Wow, Eddie against Thomas. Thomas actually starting to collapse here. This position is becoming favored towards black. -1. Not totally clear why. I mean, this pawn's an issue, and if you push, then this knight's become an issue. But still, 6 pawns against 6 pawns, equal material. Even though the engine says -1, I don't think this is totally on the verge of collapse at all. What's wrong with... Oh, because it's also because he's got a nice threat here. Okay, so he basically hung a threat. So queen c7 is hanging check, and this pawn. So Eddie actually does have a chance to win here. And Thomas is like going to be kicking himself for hanging a threat in such a simple position, but looks like, you know, maybe you can try for queen e4, because now if you play queen takes c3, you can play queen takes b7 check. So a little crafty there, but it looks like, you know, you just kick the queen out of there. Let's imagine we try to maintain, you know, then this big threat's coming in. So also king h2 is not well placed. So here earlier, you know, probably thought, hey, activating the king getting it off the back rank, but turned into a big vulnerability for X-ray tactics with queen coming to either of these squares in the future and threatening tactics on this diagonal that's actually currently occurring. So, good thing to note. Definitely not like this is about to be totally winning for Eddie, by the way, even if he picks up a pawn. I mean, it's queen and knight. And black's king is pretty exposed. You can definitely always have a ton of perpetual chances in these positions. You can have a ton of, white's king is pretty safe outside this major threat. It's not too likely to get mated. But you can also imagine knight f4 and queen g2. So Thomas has got the time to think here. Now he's really realizing he's at least dropping a pawn probably and trying to find the best way forward. So wow. Nathan found rook d5. Best move in the position. So we got to a critical position here. And Connor decided to go for this kind of on the edge 96. Computer doesn't like it, but he's justifying it tactically. Best move by Nathan. Best move by Connor. Best move by Nathan. So this kind of shows, what it takes to get to these ratings is when you get to these critical positions, they just find the best moves. And these are the decisions that decide games because if Connor didn't find g4 there, Nathan's pretty much winning on the spot. And I wouldn't be surprised if Connor found g4 even before he played 96. So position here still favoring Nathan, but totally on the edge. Crazy game here. And we'll leave it here, and we're going to definitely see how this one plays out. All right, Nathan going for d3, going for that protected passer that is knockout move in a lot of other variations, but in this one specifically, it looks like it's pretty good for Connor. You can play rook c4 here, and this pawn is actually not going anywhere. So nice development for Connor. d3 here is actually a mistake. Looks pretty good. Best move here was bishop c8, attacking g4. Definitely not easy. Just defend it. And then playing queen e5, threatening the mate. Okay, what if just queen e5 to start? Okay, so that's why, yeah. If you provoke h3, now you can threaten queen e5. That's kind of a 1-2 threat. First, attack this, provoke this. Then you're blocking the queen's backward defense of h2. So this becomes a much bigger threat. So that's an interesting note. Definitely can't fault him for playing d3 here. But cool little idea. Provoke h3 to threaten queen h2. Cool. And Connor plays rook c4. Okay, these are all natural moves. Okay, nope, actually these weren't played in the game. These are just my analysis. So, and we do actually see, time pressure coming into effect here. Nathan down to 430. Nathan now and then has actually flagged in games, so he does get kind of deep in thought in these super critical positions at the end, especially when he's got a good position, but hopefully we won't see that occurring. But I would definitely not say 4 minutes on the clock is enough to work with in a complicated position like this, especially against a good calculator like Connor. So Connor did play rook c4 on the board, and we'll see. We're not going to see d2. Bit too committal. I don't think we'll actually see that. But Nathan now trying to figure out what to do. This is always rough. Reminds me of Sveshnikov positions where I've got f5, e5, and white plays f4, and like e4 is a lot of times just wrong, even though it looks so nice. So I've got this sweet protected passer. You're supposed to apparently, maintain this tension forever. Not easy. Because, yeah, other positions earlier, we saw d3 actually was a totally winning move. So, something I probably need to analyze with my own coach on, how do you kind of decide when to pull the trigger on securing this protected passer on the third rank versus kind of when it kind of kills the tension and passes the initiative back to the opposing side. So these two players on camera. And both putting their max effort in. Yeah, you can see Nathan. Clock's on his time, getting close to 2 minutes. And having trouble finding a good move. Because unfortunately there's not a good one to find in the position. Nathan knows he's got to move. And he's about to make a move. He's under a minute. Looks like he goes for rook g5. Yep. And it looks like this is actually allowing a tactic. Knight takes b7, rook takes g4, king f1. Let's just imagine we take this piece back. Rook c7, brutal. Wow. So if Connor finds knight takes b7 and rook c7 with the interposition tactic, well, yeah, we can see why, yeah, f6, f5 earlier, you know, this bishop is going to matter the rest of the game. Okay, Eddie totally winning against Thomas. Let's see how this played out. Okay, so normal and knight d3 blunder because hanging this double threat. Okay, takes for a while, decided to go for f4 and decided to go for the queen endgame, down a pawn. But this pawn mass just rolling. And this position is now -6 for Eddie. But definitely not clear. Very tough for Thomas though, because yeah, like we see what Eddie's doing right now. You can't trade queens, so you lose the pawn game. But he still has perpetual threats. Also, got to worry about f3 check. So, Eddie doing his usual thing, getting down to no time at all, and then winning once he's playing on increment. So, let's jump back. We're going to see if Connor can find knight takes b7. Another good move in the position is king f1, just pretty sidestepping rook takes g4, which is about to come. Computer does not like h3 though because of bishop d5. You know, maybe you think of the same idea as earlier. Let's attack h2 square, but it actually likes attacking the rook. The rook running a bit low on squares. And then trading this way, a bit weird. Nothing obvious there. But also, you know, in that crazy variation we showed earlier with knight takes b7, there's some other stuff to look at here. Because, you know, black can also attack the queen. And then white has to play queen g7 check. Because they've already, you know, they started with taking a bishop here. So now it makes doing a little desperado like this a little bit more viable, even though they're sacrificing a bishop. And pick the pawn up. Yeah, so you have to kind of see a lot of tactics to play stuff like this. But also, yeah, knight takes b7 is for sure something he's actively, aggressively calculating. But rook c7, pretty insane move. Also, queen g7, sacrificing a full bishop is not super clear and easy to find. Okay, Thomas tanking here. We'll leave it on the camera board. We also see Thomas actually in the background of the camera feed, kind of pacing, checking out Connor and Nathan's game since he has a good amount of time on his own board. All right, both remaining boards having a player down to increment. Nathan on board 2 here, and Eddie in a dead 1 position on board 3, so it doesn't really matter that he's on increment. So a lot more exciting board here on board 2, and it's also on the camera, so I think we'll kind of leave it here unless something totally crazy happens. In Eddie's game, looks like he's on his way to coasting in that several pawn up queen ending. After kind of tragedy, 1 move collapse by Thomas, hanging the double threat. That was a little bit hard to see, but vulnerable king on h2 got involved with that. And a backwards pawn on c2, so 2 weaknesses got hit at the same time. So Nathan opting for bishop d5. Makes perfect sense. Let's hit that rook. Connor did not find knight takes b7, by the way. He decided to play king f1, the second best move in the position. We still got a position favoring Connor here, but very double-edged and not totally clear, but Connor definitely having the time edge here. Having 8:30 on the clock against Nathan's 30 seconds of increment. So it's probably going to get messy from here. We got a messy position. And both sides have very active pieces, so that leads to a lot of tactical mayhem. Yeah, we got the final game with high drama here on board 2. We do have another active game between Eddie and Thomas. Thomas might maybe get a miracle perpetual or something, but Eddie is got a pretty dominant position here, just up material and up king safety. But he is downtime. He is playing on increment. He could make a blunder. This game, much more double-edged though. And this game also featured on the camera. We got Nathan with the black pieces. National Master, Tournament Director, plays every single week. And very often club regular, but takes some months off now and then. Connor Weatherly, also supported the channel. In the recent past, Connor had a 12-0 streak. So very strong player. Had a couple losses lately, but still showing his strength. So Connor using the last of his time to really try to figure things out in this complex position. Makes perfect sense. You got that nice time advantage. This is the time you want to spend it and try to find the best moves you possibly can. Especially when the best move in this position is knight takes e4, sacrificing an exchange. I mean, you're also attacking knight g5, rook g5, so it does make some sense, but he's also going to counterattack, so he's not just going to let you take that thing, and your rook's still hanging. This piece is still hanging. Not totally obvious, okay, but this also rook e5 is not that obvious because of here, but at least I can imagine playing this at some point because you are annoyed at this bishop. This bishop is actually worth maybe at least 4 points, if not 5, when it's such a killer. So sometimes you don't mind trading indirect value pieces. Or rook that's traditionally worth 5 points. For a bishop that's worth 3 if the bishop is currently acting like a 4 or 5 point piece. Same thing when sometimes you'll see rook takes a knight on e6 if it's a total monster octopus. Okay, but Nathan playing on increment, so he's actually definitely prone to potentially blunder, just like all chess players are, except for apparently Eddie. When they get to time controls. So, I've actually heard the saying that this is a bit of an exaggeration, of course, and it actually is a total exaggeration, but playing on increment is almost like being down a full piece. That's too much, but it is a huge time disadvantage. A huge disadvantage in chess to be playing on increment. You don't get a chance to blunder check. Anything can happen. Same thing even in Eddie's game. He's coasting here, and this is his bread and butter, so he's going to make it happen. But still, you could hang a perpetual when you're getting down to 3 seconds. Look, he's at 33 seconds. He had 3 seconds left when he made his last move. But he's going to coast here, so let's stay zoned into our exciting camera board here. Ooh, and looks like we have a major blunder by Connor. And what happened here? Okay. So Connor decides to go for rook d4. All's good so far. Okay, attacks the rook. Takes it. Takes here. And this is the blunder. Okay, so attacking the queen. Almost all variations are winning here, except for what Nathan played in the game. Rook takes c5. Now, if you take the queen, he's taking the other rook with check. Brutal. Wow. Nathan finds the tactical refutation. Rook takes c5, only move. And Connor definitely overlooked rook takes c5 when he played rook d7. And Nathan above a minute now. and Connor getting low on time. So total table turn for Connor here, playing against National Master. And yeah, you can see Connor flustered. Not seeing that the second rook hangs with check, and you need this knight to anchor that. You can't take here. So it just missed one move in the tactical mayhem, and Nathan found it. So yeah, rough event for Connor. Potentially losing to Nathan after losing to Dane, but when usually he's going 4.5 out of 5 or a score like that. But I'm sure Connor will be back and playing his best chess soon, and definitely actually played some awesome chess this game up till one move under 5 minutes. Okay, let's see how this is resolving. I see some more moves played out on the board on the camera. So it looks like he took the queen. And I think he brought his rook back. Yep. So now we got 2 rooks against the queen, and 2 rooks and a bishop, which is, that's a lethal material advantage in and of itself, much less this past d3 pawn. So Nathan on his way to closing this one out for sure. I don't think Connor has much to play for here. So a tough game. Well played by both players, both finding only moves several times. And just kind of came down to one blunder at the end that also had an only move reputation that Nathan found. So I would say extremely well played game by both players. And let's see if Nathan can close this out with some nice technique. I mean, he's got that passer that's on its way to making a queen and lethal material, but Connor will usually play out till mate. And looks like he's going to go with some h4, h5 type ideas. Nathan pushing. Not really worried about, he's just going to take back on g6 and block with rook g7 and say, where's your next check? I'm covering queen d5, I'm covering queen d8. I mean, queen e6 check, okay, I can just sidestep and block with rook h7, and my bishop's controlling the dark square diagonal, so that's probably a good solution. Rook g7, queen e6 check, king h8, queen h6 check, rook h7, and you're out of checks. But there maybe rook h7 would hang queen f8 mate, so that's why I don't play these games. Just ruin it for myself. Yeah, bishop g7, much easier. Okay, Nathan's got an extra queen, but yeah, Connor's going to play till mate. Yeah, he does just play pretty quickly, and that's the resolution. Nathan wins. So very well played game by both players. And yeah, just clutch. Rook takes c5 on increment, played by Nathan at the end. So great game by Nathan. All right, we got final game of the night. Eddie closing it out against Thomas with the deep passers in the queen endgame. Thomas tanking here, but there's nothing to find. So we will leave it up here until this game concludes, but I'm going to step away for a moment. And yeah. Yeah, again, this is the final game of the night. Okay, queen g1. Okay, actually looks like we might have a resolution here, so trading queens. Can play f2 check afterwards, and the king is totally stranded. He can just come over, pick up the queenside pawns. Although we've got to make sure they don't run. You know, also can kind of maybe think about playing like king e3, f5, f4, f3. But again, you got to make sure b4, c5 doesn't run. That wouldn't really happen though. It's kind of hard. White making a passer is kind of slow. He's got to play a4, b4, c5, b5. And Eddie's showing that he knows the pawning game here. White's totally helpless. His last hope is somehow push that queenside pawn mass forward. But it's 3-on-2. No matter what, I mean, he can make one passer that the king can deal with. And the king is totally helpless on f1. So yeah, let's do the conclusion of all the games. Board 1 here kind of had a mystery between Dane and Chris. Seemed pretty normal for most of the game, but Chris didn't use any of his time and lost in a drawn position, according to DGT, so I don't know what happened here. Nathan against Connor, or Connor against Nathan. You know, we just saw this epic battle. English, so kind of just very standard opening where both sides got fully developed and did a lot of maneuvering. Neither side had any huge defects. Nathan made a kind of controversial decision, I'd say, to play f5, making this bishop a monster. And we just had total tactical mayhem at the end, and Nathan found just a sick move, rook takes c5 to only move actually in the position to totally win for black, otherwise it was totally winning for white. So this was total mayhem on the board between two extremely strong players in the club, but clutched by Nathan. Board 3, we got National Master Thomas Babcock against Eddie Wasserman, and we had French, Eddie favoring his French, but playing Rubinstein style. Thomas plays French himself, so probably knows a lot about this. We had a totally even game. Got into this queen and knight endgame, and Thomas ended up making a bit of a mistake. I would say, the king on h2 was kind of a problem because eventually it became a double threat. So that's what happened in the game here. And yeah, he ended up just sacking a pawn this way. And Eddie went ahead and converted the pawn up queen endgame with nice technique. Or we're assuming he's going to. The game's still ongoing. But definitely showing that it's not going to be possible, because even if he comes up, he's just going to take this way. And if he pushes, he's going to... You got to be careful. You can't go take and let this thing queen, but he can come around this way. Come here, then gotta think about it, actually. Because yeah, you can't push. Okay. Yeah, so no chance here. Alright, so then board 4, let's take a look at that. We're doing the recap. We've got two young talents, Ryan against Albert. Albert had two huge upsets this month, but this round we got a nice Italian game. Nothing too crazy in the opening. Although I would say white neglecting their development slightly, but engine likes it, and black kind of hanging this maybe striking in the center a bit unprepared, allowing the king to get shattered. So afterwards, Ryan did a nice job, though, of doing a big follow-up attack, even though black actually had some good chances and played some pretty critical moves. They found this sweet move, queen h5, allowing a double check, king running across the board, but it didn't really matter because this king was going to find safety on the queen side, and this king is going to get mated afterwards. So finding queen h5, awesome move by Ryan. Well-deserved victory on board 4. Arvind against Yuvi. We had I think we just had a Slav masterclass here. I'm sure some Slav players can understand the exact nuances of what led to Arvind getting such a nice position here. But queenside castle and breaking in on that king was definitely helpful, and he played a very trendy move here, queen f3, which scores very well for masters and is pretty rare. So Arvind may be coming with some nice prep, getting pretty nice position in the Slav here, and going ahead and building it up even further. So this eval just kept growing, attack got bigger and bigger, and he had a nice conversion. So I would say, yeah, just a nice opening advantage, built bigger and bigger until Arvind had a nice win. So pretty one-sided game here, maybe the result of some good opening prep. Robert against... Okay, turns out, yep, we had the gap tooth pawns at the end, and it was a win. So we got an Alekhine here. Very well played game by Torfi. Basically staying totally even with 21-37 Robert throughout the game, even actually having some chances to have better evals in various positions. But at the very end, his lack of pawn game knowledge allowed Robert to trade into a winning pawn game. Because, yep, here, very critical decision anytime you're going to go offer the final piece trade that opposing side isn't winning the pawn game. Black did not know about these gap tooth pawns, which support each other when they're this far apart, just one file apart. Can't take either one because the other one will queen. So pretty big mistake here, but Robert was able to capitalize on that and show his pawn game knowledge. But outside that, totally awesome game by Torfi, and Robert kind of lucked out that he was actually able to grab this one at the end when he had a totally drawn ending here. And Thaddeus against Daniel in the open section. We had a Scandi, Queen A5, and he played a positional with King's Indian. So this is always a good way to actually play. You can play against almost any opening, Catalan King's Indian style. It's a positional way to play against, you get the white pieces. So it's not usually the most ambitious possible way to play, but it's always solid and always pretty good. And okay, had some kind of weird knight maneuvers here, jumping out, jumping back. Just had a lot of maneuvering and then kind of equal middle game with not too much going on in the center, not too much central pawn tension, not too much to calculate. So both sides are kind of maneuvering a lot. And got to a nice even Steven rook end game here. Major piece, both sides controlling the d file. This is total zeros, and they decided to agree to a draw here. So it makes sense. And it looks like we did have a final result against. Looks like he decided to resign here. So that's actually going to be it for tonight. Also, you can see the cameras down. So thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate all the viewer support. Again, let's show our sponsor here. Check out Chess Goals. If you decide to buy any opening courses, use coupon code CASTLE. Please like, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, if you're a player watching the replay, please comment. You're the main audience that we are targeting. So very much want to see the players. Check out the replay. Check out their own games. Next week, we're going to have a FIDE master on here analyzing all the players' games throughout the night. So it's also going to be a good chance to learn from some stronger players. So yeah. Oh, and I see we got Eddie in the chat. Nice turnaround, Eddie. And yeah, but gonna shut it down here. So I will see you guys all next week. We're gonna have round 1 of the September tournament, that's only gonna be a 4-rounder next month. So every round's really gonna count next month. So all right, see you later.